This week on the Honor Roll podcast, we will be talking to honor student Serena Bhaskar along with USF students Karla Evangelista de la Rosa and Arelis Rodriguez Martinez about the creation of Health Humanities journal, The Capsule. All that and more coming up next. Hey Honors Bulls, welcome to the Honor Roll podcast, the flagship podcast of the Judy Genshaft Honors College Podcast Network. I'm your host, Fabiana Requena, a third-year student studying marketing and business analytics at the University of South Florida and a proud member of the Honors College. As always, we like to start off the podcast with one big question. So my question this week is, what inspires you? Well, for me, I feel like inspiration can come in waves. Sometimes we feel more inspired than others, and inspiration can come in many different ways, whether it's from people in your life or experiences. And I think a lot of students come to college not necessarily knowing what they want to do, but I feel like so many ideas circulate in an environment with such young people, ambitious people, so inspiration can be pretty easy to find. For me, I didn't really know I'd be doing half of the things that I'm involved in right now, like running a business or being the host for a podcast. So something that inspired me to co-found a business was like my love for building relationships with people, storytelling, and actually food. So today, I'm joined by a group of students who recognize the intersection between health studies and the arts, leading them to create and publish The Capsule, which is a health humanities journal. So stay tuned.
Hello, my name is Bethany Jowers, and I am the Academic Affairs Graduate Assistant here at the USF Judy Genshaft Honors College. Incoming freshmen should join the Honors College to expand their academic horizons beyond their major classes, and because the Honors College is really a gateway to many of the experiences that are necessary to prepare yourself for the workforce or for graduate school. So for example, research, internships, volunteer experiences, these are all learning adjacent things that go on here at the Honors College and that people here at the Honors College can help connect you with to prepare you for success after graduation. Go Bulls!
All right, join with us today. We have students Serena Bhaskar, Karla Evangelista de la Rosa, and Arelis Rodriguez Martinez. Would you all like to introduce yourselves?
Okay, so hi, I'm Serena Bhaskar. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of The Capsule.
My name is Karla Evangelista. I am the managing editor for The Capsule.
I am Arelis Rodriguez Martinez, and I was a creative writer from The Capsule of the last volume.
It's so nice to have you all here. So Serena, we want to kind of start off by asking The Capsule what it is. It's a health humanities journal that you started. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is and how you were inspired to create it?
Yeah, so The Capsule is a relatively new health humanities journal. We actually founded it last year, so the volume's out. You can read it on Issue or on our Instagram. Like, there's a little link in the link tree. But essentially, it is a platform for sharing authentic and impactful work, intending to promote reflection, awareness, reduce stigma about certain health topics through the humanities. So through scholarly articles, through creative writing, through photography, through studio art. We're actually open for submissions for Volume 2 right now. They will close in December, and then we'll have another round in February. But yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to create this? Like, was there any specific moment that you were like, this is definitely what I want to do?
I've been an avid reader and writer since a very young age, especially in high school. I got into more like creative writing and poetry, but I also was very interested in the sciences. So the sciences and creative writing were my two passions. And it was only until freshman year, my second semester, I took a class called Narrative Medicine with Dr. Brianna Cusano. And in that class, it's essentially a smaller scope of health humanities. So narrative medicine is about the practice of health humanities in a patient setting. Mm-hmm. So essentially, it's more for healthcare professionals that if they use active listening skills and focus on listening to patient stories, they can improve their patients' outcomes. So it was a really fun class. And from that class, I was very much inspired to start a health humanities journal here at USF. So I essentially went out, found my team. It was very nerve-wracking at first, but honestly, I would say if you keep reaching out to people, you'll realize there's more people out there who have the same vision as you, and to keep reaching out to others, and they'll help you with your idea too, because my idea in the beginning very much came to fruition with the help of others and their inspiration.
Right. So similarly, I wanted to ask Karla and Arelis how you got involved.
Yeah, so I got involved with the Capsule last spring, and I saw that they were looking for people to add to their team. And really similar to Serena, I am a psych major, so I'm really interested in both the social sciences and healthcare. And so I was really interested in the Capsule's mission, having to do with public health and bringing empathy into that. And I also had a real passion for writing. I already had editing experience as the editor-in-chief for her campus at USF, which focuses more on journalism. And so I really loved the Capsule also had creative pieces, and that's what really brought me to the Capsule.
Well, for me, I'm an English major, and the reason why I decided to be an English major is because I just feel like forms of literature can allow a bridge for anybody to understand kind of how you were saying where someone was going through. So like a patient and a doctor, there's a bridge with literature. And for me, I just wanted to, with Capsule, take down those stigmas of certain things that I've gone through. It was an opportunity. I've always loved health. I've always loved research. I've always loved science. And for me to major in English, it was just about how can I be the voice for Latinas? How can I be the voice for people that want to know about mental health and like an actual first person approach to it? So for me, it was kind of just that. Like I got this beautiful opportunity, and then I applied, and I was a little nervous about it, but it all worked out. And then, now we're here. So like kind of full circle moment. But yeah, I just wanted to be a voice, and to do that from my experience, I think that's like the biggest blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for all sharing how you got involved. I know that this was something that was a really big opportunity when you were first coming up with it. Can you share how you started to build a team and how you realized, oh, this is like going to be a really big project?
Yeah, so I have some experience with writing and only a little bit with editing, but I reached out to a lot of my seniors and my juniors. So I'm involved in Sparks Magazine, which is essentially a journal for Asian Americans, Asian American Pacific Islander Desi community, APITA. But essentially, there was a lot of juniors and seniors that I really looked up to. Like, they were amazing editors, amazing designers. And I essentially reached out to them first, hoping they would guide me and give me some ideas. And a lot of them ended up joining our team, and they made the journal look absolutely amazing. And I learned a lot from them. Yeah.
So you would say that like mentorship really helped guide you along the way?
Yes,
Do you all
very
feel that
much.
way as well?
Definitely, yeah.
I wanted to ask, from the design, the writing, the actual printing and production, there's so many components that actually go into the final product. So what was it like in the beginning, like knowing where to start?
I feel like in the beginning, it was a little overwhelming just because it was our first issue, and we kind of had a vision of where we wanted to end up, but we didn't necessarily know fully how we were going to get there. And so I wasn't part of the Capsule for their first semester, but I think towards the end of the fall semester, beginning of the spring semester is when I joined. And so we already kind of had a round of submissions. And from there, we were thinking about how was the editing process going to go? And our team of editors kind of came together and decided what would be the best plan of action. So we took inspiration from Sparks Magazine, we took inspiration from her campus, and we came together as editors to figure out what would be the best course of action for us. And for that was a virtual style of editing with our editors, where we would communicate online through Google Docs and through email, which ended up working the best for us. But I would say in the beginning, it was pretty much all trial and error with how we were going to figure out what to do.
Yeah, we tried like modeling it with how her campus does it, how Sparks Magazine does it, how Thread Magazine does it. Essentially, it was a trial and error until we found what works best for us, I would say, yeah.
So Arelis, I wanted to ask you what it was like to be a contributor to the Capsule. What kind of inspired you to create a piece?
Yeah, kind of how I said before, I love literature because I think that it voices things that maybe we're not aware of, like just in our everyday life. And for me, so I submitted it, and I did do the editing process. Like I was doing the emails and the Google Forms and all of that. And it was really, really simple. I loved having input on my work. And I think that kind of how you were saying before, like the more people that you have in a community, the more the message can be like accessible to everyone. Like anyone can resonate with it. Because I have my perspective, but to have more perspectives on one piece of work, it really like allowed it to shine. And obviously there's things that I can't see from my work, because there's this thing with like writing where you like kill your darlings, which basically means that sometimes there's something that's really, really good, but maybe again, it's not going to help everybody or most people resonate with it. So then just tweaking it a little bit, that was really, really helpful. And for me, it was just about the process of mental health instead of mental illness. So I really just wanted to highlight mental health instead of mental illness, because if you think about mental illness sounds very much so ill. Ill would be, there's a problem, let's get a solution. There's not really any humanity in it, which is, I love that, because this is like a humanities, magazine. But for me, doing more of mental health meant, okay, so what are the tools, the resources, what are the experiences? My piece is bipolar, and it's not abstract. It's very concrete. There's not like trigger warnings or anything like that, because it's not super emotional of like, oh, this was the word. And a lot of people do have very emotional experiences with bipolar. But I also wanted to highlight that you can have a diagnosis, and that doesn't limit you. You can have a diagnosis and you can have preconceptions, and those preconceptions don't necessarily have to be true. Because for me, in the piece, it highlights like what my preconceptions were, or what my ideas of bipolar were, or what it could mean if I did have it or if I didn't. Because when you are going through a process, you usually have to talk to a lot of doctors. So you don't really know what's going on with you. The doctor doesn't really know what's going on with you, and it's a good process. And thankfully, I'm happy and healthy. And that is because I think about mental health instead of mental illness. And it's like a lifelong journey of like ups and downs and just getting the resources and the tools. So for me, I was inspired by my personal journey of wanting other people also to then just know it's okay. Like you don't have to have all the answers, but you're not your diagnosis. You're a person, you're an individual. And then you might go through a stressor, or you might go through trauma, or there's so many different factors, but you are essentially who you are. And then you can have tools and resources to, cope. And so then again, with like editing, it was really nice. So then the people that were helping me edit can refine it to make that empowering statement just come alive. And yeah, it was a great process. It was really, really easy. I'm surprised that you were saying that it was a trial and error, because it was seamless to me. So y'all did great. And I really enjoyed the whole entire journey.
For all of you, what did you kind of hope to accomplish with bringing the capsule to life?
I would say when I started it, I really wanted to highlight people's individual personal stories with health. We also involved other people who had ideas about just public health advocacy, like in general, through scholarly articles. But mainly for me, I really wanted to highlight personal health narratives to give like a platform to these students to share their thoughts and ideas, because I think it's really important that the patients themselves, not even just patients, caregivers, maybe you've interacted with health through another role, such as a shadow or a volunteer. I just wanted to bring a platform for students to be able to just share their thoughts and ideas.
Absolutely. And I think that bringing the humanity into it, like you were all talking about, is a really important aspect to healthcare. And I think that our generation is doing a really good job of bringing that component in.
Looking for a way to make your resume stand out? Phi Beta Kappa is the nation's most prestigious honor society, recognizing the top liberal arts students at the highest ranked institutions across the country. Membership in Phi Beta Kappa not only enhances your resume, boosting job and graduate school prospects, but also places you among elite company, including presidents, Supreme Court justices, world-renowned scientists, authors, and cultural icons. Learn more about Phi Beta Kappa. Visit usf.edu/Phi Beta Kappa.
I also wanted to ask, for those who haven't necessarily seen the journal in person, can you describe what you would expect to find inside?
Yeah, so our journal is split up into a couple different sections. We, of course, have the introduction to what the capsule is, who's behind the capsule, introductions of our writers. And then when we get into our pieces, we have scholarly articles, we have creative pieces, and we have multimedia. And within creative pieces, that encapsulates both poetry and short story. And so we have a really wide range of different types of stories that we portray, and not only just stories, but people's personal research. I know a lot of our contributors that did scholarly articles actually submitted revised versions of their honors theses. And so kind of going back to what you're asking about what we hope to accomplish with the capsule, I was really happy that we were able to show through Volume 1 that medicine and healthcare is so much more than just a science. There's so much more that goes into it in terms of the person-to-person interactions, and I really think we did a good job through everyone's stories and everyone's research at showing that.
Yeah. Where did you guys find students that wanted to be published in the journal?
So semester 1, when we first started, was just outreach. So a lot of our contributors were our friends, but honestly, we had an amazing social media team. Our Instagram looks absolutely amazing. Shout out Daniela and Summer. But it was outreach through Instagram, through just our personal friends. We did a lot of cold emailing to professors, especially at the end of the semester, before the final essays were wrapping up. We were like, hey, if you want to, you can submit a revised version of those essays you've worked so hard on these essays, you can get them published.
Yeah. Did you get any?
Yes, we did actually. Yeah, a lot through biomedical ethics, Dr. Dormois' biomedical ethics class. A lot of people submitted from there. Also honors thesis, like Karla said. But yeah, it was also creative writing classes. We also reached out to a lot of other creative writing clubs and classes, because oftentimes I feel like mental health is a topic that a lot of, especially in my poetry classes, we write about that a lot, I've noticed. So we reached out to a lot of creative writing classes and professors too.
What kind of challenges did you guys face, whether it was through the writing process or through the actual editing process?
I think one of the issues that we ran into during our first round of edits was figuring out a good timeline for writers, and figuring out the best way to communicate with our writers, just because we go through 3 rounds of editing. So they have 3 different versions that we edit and continue making edits throughout the different rounds. And creating a timeline that worked for everyone. Initially, I think we wanted to do in-person or live appointments with our writers, and that was just something at the time that we weren't able to do. And so figuring out that timeline and having everyone submit on time and be reliable communicators was kind of difficult for us, but I think come second semester we figured out a good way for us, and it was smooth sailing from there.
And what kind of feedback or things have you heard from other people that have read the magazine?
They love it.
I feel like as a reader, I was definitely blown away because, as mentioned, there's so many different forms. So there's multimedia, and there's poetry, and there's short stories, and there's articles, and there's information. There's so many different things, different forms, different formats that you can, anybody can connect to the capsule. And I think that's the really cool part, because anyone can connect to it. Therefore, anyone can say, oh, I really loved it, because there's something for everybody. As a reader, I enjoyed it for sure.
I think outside of the actual articles that people wrote, I heard a lot of people saying that the actual designing of the journal was really great. Even I, when I saw the first draft from our journal designer, I was blown away. It looked so amazing, so much better than what I imagined. The colors, the design, entire composition was so well thought out. And I hear a lot of people commenting on that.
Yeah. Shout out Amreen.
No, it is definitely beautiful. Like, if you haven't seen it in person, it is stunning. And I love the color palette. It feels very science, yet aesthetic.
It's like warm.
Yes.
You know, you want to open it up and look at what's inside.
When we first started the capsule, we sat down with our social media designers and we sat down and pulled out a color palette. So like dark blues, dark reds, and white and black. And we stuck with that through our Instagram and through our journal.
Absolutely. And what do you see your plans for the next volume being? You said you're kind of in the recruiting stage for getting contributors in. What did you learn from the first volume that you want to bring to the second?
Right now, we're in the stages of finalizing our timeline for the coming semester. And I think we've learned to try to give people as much time as possible, because you can't really force writing, especially when it's creative. If someone has a scholarly article, it's kind of easier for them because the edits are a lot smaller than during creative pieces, where the writer and the editor might have different ideas of where we want the final piece to go and what themes we want to convey. And I think giving our writers as much time as possible to figure out what they want their story to mean and how they're going to communicate that to other people is something that we're taking into account more this time around when we're making our schedule for editing and the publishing process.
So Serena, what would you say to honor students who are kind of juggling with the idea, like, should I submit something? Should I not? Like, I don't really feel like I'm a really strong writer. What would you say to students?
I would say submit it anyway. You do not have to be a writer or an artist with much experience. Like, you can come to one of our events if you're really, really hesitant about it. We can help you flesh out your ideas. But I would say submit it anyway. Like, we're the editors and the masthead is here to help you. So don't be nervous to ask any questions and just do it. Like Arelis said, just do it, because that's how you're going to grow. Like, put yourself out there, and through this, you're going to be able to reach out to a lot of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid. Try something new. And kind of along those same lines, I wanted to know what things you're looking to improve for the next volume.
We're looking to do more in-person events. Like, actually on Tuesday, we had an event with like career mapping, if you want to go how to use health humanities in your career in the future, as well as a health humanities conference that we're looking to go to next spring. Hopefully everything works out. But this semester, we're trying to interact more with our contributors and with more members of our club, because last year was primarily online, and we were just trying to get the journal out there for a semester and really focused on our release event. But this year we're trying to be interacting with our contributors and our members throughout the year.
Yeah. And as a writer, I feel like in the theme of improvement, I just know and I feel like the improvement in the capsule is inevitable, because now as a writer, you see all the forms, you see the multimedia, you see the photography, because it's not even just writing or articles, there's photography in it too. So then I can only imagine if all these families came out to see the magazine, and the professors and the doctors and the patients and the friends and the families and all the things, then people are inspired. They're like, oh, I can actually, there's a lot more art, maybe like art forms than maybe you would assume. So then it's like, oh, okay, I can like submit a picture. So I can already imagine that the next one's going to be even better, because there's already like Pandora's box has been open for sure.
Yeah, going off of that, I think we're really just hoping to expand going forward now that we kind of have the bare bones down and we know how to actually get to the final produced volume. I think we're really just hoping to get more people involved. Like Arelis said, include more forms of multimedia. Really hoping to include like music. We had someone do dance in our last volume, which was really great. Just people being creative. Just creative people submitting any form that really speaks to them, I think is a big goal for us.
Right. And to students who are listening, what kind of submissions are you looking for? Or if someone is thinking like, oh, I don't know if I could create art for that, if I could write poetry for that, what would you say to students?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is this quote that I remember reading where you kind of shout into darkness and then sometimes you get something back and sometimes you don't. And there's a beauty in that. Like, you don't know who you're going to maybe help, or you don't know who you're going to inspire, or you don't know who you're going to help feel a little bit more seen and more heard and more loved. So I would say that your words do matter. You do have an impact. Maybe you don't know, but this can be a learning opportunity where you do find that. You find out that something that you wrote that could be creative, or something that you wrote that can be a little factual, or whatever comes out. Because I think that sometimes there might be pressure on what you write. But yeah, submit it anyway. Because one, you're not going to grow if you don't challenge yourself a little bit. And two, like how I was saying in the beginning, you really don't know who you're going to impact. And I think with health, that personal side is now getting spoken about more. And also that personal side from a doctor or a patient doesn't really matter. Even from a loved one, there was a lot of pieces about someone seeing their loved one go through something. So all the perspectives matter, because if it wasn't talked about before, kind of how I was saying, you can make someone feel seen or heard or loved or appreciated, or just united with someone. And I think that's really, really important, especially when you're going through health, because it's literally life or death. So to help someone, do it. Just submit.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, and it's a really interesting aspect that you might not get from a lot of other magazines.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of just to wrap up, Serena, what would you say to honors students who are passionate about a potential project and don't necessarily know where to start?
I would say is trying to find some mentors or some juniors and seniors, because they really helped me in my work. So juniors and seniors in Sparks work helped for me, in Thread magazine. Also, Dr. Davidson and Miss Kisak, they both helped. I sat down when I had the idea of a Health Humanities journal, and they helped me kind of formulate it. I would say find mentors, and then also don't wait for a perfect time, because I know we're all perfectionists, and in the beginning I kind of was waiting for the right time. I was like, no, let me like talk to this person, or let me fix this, but just do it. Just start it. There's no perfect time. Start it, and then you'll figure it out on the way. Like,
For Karla and Arelis, what were like the biggest kind of takeaways from being part of the capsule for you guys?
I would say that it was just really beautiful seeing everyone's stories coming together in the end, and seeing how people are dealing with so many different things, but at the end of the day, we're all human and we all need that empathy in healthcare. Even things that you wouldn't directly consider healthcare, like we had a lot of people submitting stories about birth and about death, and pretty much all aspects of the human experience in general. And it was just really beautiful to see everyone's works come together in the end, and during our release party to see everyone reading their stories and sharing with friends and family and faculty was my biggest takeaway.
Kind of to like piggy off of that, there's a lot of unity, and that's just beautiful in itself. Unity because there were so much forms, but we had something in common, and the same thing that we had in common was the human experience in healthcare, and that's powerful. Just because if you can highlight all these different, like the diversity of something, you will actually see that there's more unity in diversity than you would assume. So my biggest takeaway was that too, and also that, again, like your words matter, and there's a lot more people that agree with you or can connect with you than you would probably assume.
the Volume 1 release event was like such an amazing night. Like, yes, if you flip through the pages, it's amazing. But when you were sitting there watching and listening to all the contributors read their works and kind of explain their works, like it was a really vulnerable night. And I just applaud the contributors who had the courage to like stand up there and speak their piece out loud and how it impacted them. Like, I definitely agree with Arelis. Like, there was like a spirit of unity that night, and it was really interesting because it wasn't just like health students. Like, we had a finance student submit, we had other majors submit, and like mainly undergraduate students, but there was undergraduate students, professors, parents, friends, family there. So I love how the capsule brought us all together in that moment.
Well, I'm so glad you were all able to join us here on the podcast today. Thank you so much, and we're so excited to see the next volume.
Thank you for having us.
All right, we are back in the studio, and it was so nice to see how these students were able to create a magazine essentially from scratch, being inspired by an honors class and the intersection between two very different things, which we don't typically see. And like I said before, I think that this generation is doing a really great job of recognizing the relationship between the humanities and healthcare. And I think that that's something that we should continue to fight for. And with that said, don't forget to check the Honor Roll newsletter and our website at usf.edu/honors for all upcoming events, updates, and news. That'll do it for this week's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded in the Judy Genshaft Honors College at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by honor student Sandra Napolitano and Andrew Gnome. Thank you all so much for listening, and please do not forget to rate and review our podcast, as we really appreciate your feedback. Tune in next week, where we will hear more honor students and talk to more members of the Judy Genshaft Honors College. Until next time, go Bulls!